on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and be.
Well, welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, in studio this morning with my brothers from another. The doctor is in the house today. Yes, it's Memorial Day weekend, and we are live. Folks are probably saying, this is not Memorex. We are live in the studio this morning. Good morning, Dr. Bradley. Good morning, Pastor Hobbs. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm well, brother. I'm just happy to be here and happy to be back and fresh from Chicago. And you know, it's just
the Windy City. You blew in.
Yeah, I blew that in, man. I blew in from the Windy City, but it was nice.
Yeah, good, man. That's the only time I know, man. When you're not here, I get all the texts. Where's Dr. Bradley? I said he's on hiatus.
Yeah, man. You know, you still got to do those dad and husband things, man.
Well, listen, you've been a great example for me. I always tell people.
I appreciate
all the time.
You, Doc.
No, really, I got much love for you, man. You have been an inspiration. You know, like I said, when they gave you lemons, you made lemonade.
You got to. You know, hey, I'm a black man in America. You have to always remake yourself in this country as a man of color.
And it's getting more and more difficult to do that.
Yes, it is. It is. But people got to think. They got to think, man. You got to. You know, I'm never sat in one spot. I'm like, oh, what can I do differently?
Right.
You know, if this doesn't work out, where am I going? You got to have a plan B and plan C.
You gotta have a plan all the way down to Z these days. I'll tell you. Or the C might be see you later. Hey, Pastor Hobbs, sir, if you wouldn't mind.
Father God, we bless you. Thank you for your grace, your mercy, for being all powerful, all knowing, and very present help in the time of need. We thank you that this is the day that you made, and we choose to rejoice and be glad in it. Set us apart now for your service by your power of love that's divine. Let our soul look up with steadfast hopes, our wills consumed in yours. Let the words of our mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. You alone are our strength and our Redeemer. Now unto you who's able to keep us from falling and present us faultless before the presence of your glory with exceeding joy. To you we give all glory, all majesty, dominion, and power, both now and forevermore. In Jesus' name.
Amen to that. Well, we need that these days, I tell you. I want to say good morning to some of our faithful listeners. Good morning, Brother Jamal. Good morning, Brother Cliff. Good morning, Brother Dicker. Good morning, Sister Priscilla. She's away this week as well, but I know she did her broadcast from Zoom while she was away this week. So say good morning to her as well. Good morning, Sister Denise. You know, and you know, normally when we go visit our friend out of town,
we go to Indiana.
Yeah, but it's that's guess who's going to Indiana? Who's in Indiana?
Who? You had it all keyed up, brother?
Yeah. There we go. You gotta do it right.
There you go. You gotta get it from the. You gotta get it from the beginning, huh?
Got away from me. I say that because the Celtics are going back to Indiana. They'll be there tonight. Game 3. The Celtics are up 2-0. I don't know how Brother Bridgeforth. I know he must have divided feelings there because he has been up in this area for so long, and now he's down in Indiana. And the Celtics, they almost lost that first one, but they pulled it out. But then they kind of took it convincingly in Game 2. But the next 2 games are down in Indiana, so I don't know if the Celtics will be going back to Indiana if they pull these 2 out.
Yeah, I don't tend to follow them.
Yeah,
you know, because I have my own.
I know that green. I Shamrock. Yeah. You know, I like you. I've had mixed emotions about that, but you know, I look at the makeup of the team. Probably one of the few sports where. You know, they look kind of more like us than any other.
Yeah, I think that's because they don't have a choice. You know, that's the bottom line.
That's true. Yeah. So, also we're gonna have a guest come in this morning, Michelle Ferguson. She's gonna be talking about real estate, overcoming obstacles in Boston and beyond in purchasing homes. And I have to tell you, Dr. Brown, you know, you've been away for a few weeks, and I think you were on the broadcast when we talked about the cost of real estate in Boston had hit the milestone of the average price of being $900,000. Well, since your absence, came out an article the other day. It has now jumped to $950,000 for the average price of a home in Boston.
Wow,
$950,000.
We got to do something about that on top of the interest rates.
Absolutely. And before I forget, I want to say also, I always forget my brother. Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales. I don't know if your brother's around this weekend, but I want to say a hearty good morning to that brother. Yeah, $950,000, the average price for a home. So she's going to come and talk about, how, you can navigate through that. I'm not sure how you can, because I said, even with my situation, I've had to pull back. I've been an investor for a while, and these numbers, as from an investment standpoint, they don't make sense. But I think when you have to have a home, you look at it from a different lens and say, because just think about it. A few weeks ago, people saying, well, if I bought a home at $900,000, how would I recover? And then 3 weeks later, it now jumped up to $950,000. Real estate is one of the few investments, if you do it right, they'll return. That's that generational wealth that they talk about.
That's how the system is designed. And you have to understand that historically, you look at the history, the people who actually designed our systems were their ancestors were peasants in England or in Europe, so their land was taken from them and given to the king who divided it up to the lords, or to the noblemen, and so now they come over here. Land is what they're going for, and then so the aristocracy in America is predicated on land ownership. Now that was an issue for Native Americans because they were like, well, we can't own land, that belongs to God. It's like owning water, but they came with a different perspective.
That is true. And I guess that's why, when slavery, we were promised those 40 acres and a mule. Why we didn't get the 40 acres because of the value that
exactly. So you're not going to give a valuable asset to a person that you don't value,
right?
You know what I mean?
Wow! What a way to put it. but right, it's like wow, that's right. Yeah. Because when we talk about the generational wealth, just imagine if some of our ancestors had 40 acres back then, what it would be worth today.
Well, they had it, but what happened was when the Confederate soldiers returned, they took it back. You know what I mean? So and then you had a President Johnson who actually eradicated the order that General Sherman issued to provide for the 40 acres.
So there's where we coined it Indian givers. It wasn't the Indian givers.
It wasn't the Indians. It was our government.
Our government. Oh, man, wow. You're listening to At the Round Table with them. We'll call it here to 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the number to call in this morning. But, also, I want to say, to you, Dr. Bradley, and to all of our veterans out there, a happy Memorial Day, because
Thank you.
If it wasn't for people like yourself, I would not be sitting here. And it's really troubling how, and I want to get into that a little bit because I really want to get your take on it as well. I was doing some research, and it was saying 1 in 7 of the people that were in the insurrection were folks in the military who attacked our Capitol. And a lot of that was that what they found was the commonality was that they were Fox News listeners, and they got their information and they digested, but because that is what's being played on a military basis. And there is a push now because it has been proven that they're not putting out news on Fox News. They're putting out disinformation. And the fact that they knew they were doing with the lawsuits that have been filed, that have all come out, that behind the scenes they were talking about how these people were idiots and that this was one of the most secure and safe elections around. And that these military folks felt like they were fighting because I guess there's a mindset in the military. You're fighting for the country. You fought for this country, and if something is wrong and that someone is taking it falsely, that your natural reaction is to attack.
Yeah, you're right. And even after you have served, and like myself, and now you're out of the military, you're actively involved in civilian life after serving in the police department. I felt when I saw it in my office, in my basement, I was appalled. And I said to my wife, even if I were a Trump supporter, which I am not, But if I were, I would not vote for him after that.
Right.
Because what he did was he actually allowed, number one, would really, as a black man, would really bother me, to have the halls have the Virginia battle flag walk the halls of our Capitol.
Yeah.
Which it never happened during the Civil War. I was appalled over that.
Wow.
But the fact that he attacked our functional government, he's an insurrectionist.
Yeah.
And he attacked our functional government.
Yeah.
I could not vote for it.
Yeah.
And so Fox News, in my opinion, this is Dr. Bradley speaking. That's propaganda. That's not news.
Well, not only is it propaganda, they paid almost $1 billion for promoting, but the profit that they made from selling that was worth the risk and what they had to pay out. That's what's so sad is that this is about profit. This is not about real news. This is about, as you said, propaganda. This is about making money, because behind the scenes they were telling the truth in their texts and emails. Unlike Trump, they do email, they do text, and they were telling the truth.
But you see that same behavior replicated in the Republican Party, though.
Yeah.
You see people like Nikki Haley, or Governor Sununu, or Bill Barr.
How about our Supreme Court?
Well,
right?
I didn't even want to go there.
No, we gotta go there, right? I mean, these flags and this is political, and they're saying, well, it's free speech, and he should be able to fly with it. But when people were flying black lights, I mean, the Supreme Court judges are supposed to be impartial, right? They're not supposed to be. If you have a political view, you don't put it out there, because how do you say now I can get a fair trial with a judge? And as you alluded to many times on the show, and it didn't dawn on me until you said it one day, that the Supreme Court has no enforcement. They don't have an army. They don't have a police force. That people comply because we're law-abiding. But if I'm finding out now that this is all political, how much longer are people going to just obey decisions from the court?
They're not, because it's going to be one-sided. It's going to be slanted. It's going to be partisan. The Supreme Court is supposed to apply the law to the situation,
right.
not the political. I mean, they are human,
right?
But they're supposed to be. If you cannot, move your personal political beliefs away from the issue, then you should not take the job.
Or you should recuse yourself. But that has been in operation, and then you find out that these guys, Alito, Roberts, and those folks.
Don't forget about Clarence.
Clarence. But I'm saying is that they were showing how they had been brought into this fold a long time ago. When they were young attorneys, they were working in this way to eradicate, and now they have the final say in these matters.
Which is why they were selected.
Correct.
They were seen as a particular attorney who could take the law and tweak it and bend it and twist it to justify, the rationale that they have for a particular political conservative agenda. What really frustrates me is how we see people that look like us who are conservative in this umbrella. I understand conservatism. I know what it means. I got all that, but this is a different level of conservatism. You know what I mean? This is a different level of conservatism, in my opinion.
It's called compliance. It's called, obedience, because that's what the authoritarian government that they're trying to usher is in. Because again, just listening to you guys earlier, the idea that that the third branch, the judicial branch, is supposed to adjudicate between the Congress and the president, and if he wants to, he can have Congress just say, "All right, get rid of the Supreme Court." That is very disturbing.
Yeah, well, I think you're going to see things happening that's going to try to make it illegal to prosecute this guy, especially if he wins.
Yeah,
I think the Republican Party is so bent on supporting him that he can actually have them.
Like he says, he can shoot someone in Times Square or Fifth Avenue. And no one will care.
Yeah, I mean,
they won't prosecute.
But I feel that this particular House of Representatives, if the Republicans control it, which I doubt that's going to happen, that they're going to write laws to prevent prosecution of this guy.
Yeah.
Right. Well, then we have a king. As you said, right?
Exactly. We have a king. But I remember my conversation that everybody was running for president. He was running for king.
That's why I said it's profound. Sometimes you hear things, and it's not that I ignore what you say, but it doesn't register because it just sounds like that probably won't happen, right? You just figure, wow, in this country, right. That was one of the reasons why people fled England, because they didn't want to be under a monarchy and kings.
the irony is, okay, they I guess like romanticize American history when they say that they came here for religious freedom, but the first thing that they did, first of all, 1619, the slavery landed
1619 project,
it landed before the Pilgrims did. Okay, so in 1620, when the Pilgrims did land, the first thing they did, once they survived, was outlaw other religions.
Right. So, but also, this recent Supreme Court decision now, the district court ruled that the South Carolina gerrymandering of the districts down there was unanimously. And then it was appealed to the Supreme Court. And in 6-3 the other day, all the conservatives said that that this gerrymandering, redistricting in South Carolina was legal, and that it wasn't. It says, how can you look in someone's heart and say, this was Alito who was flying these flags, one at his home and one at his second home, right? His opinion was that you can't say because they're doing this that it's racially motivated. Well, everything they did was to divide. Right. I mean, this is, you look at all the things he's doing, and everything he's doing is racially motivated. And all the things they want to undo: affirmative action, voting rights, same-sex marriage. Go down the list. Immigrants. This roundup. This. I can only imagine going back and saying, people watch this with Hitler talking like this, and look what happened.
Well, I was
going to say that, this whole thing of like repudiating or just trying to like get rid of their history or trying to whitewash their history is like, even like right now they're talking about the Riot Act. When that report came out from the commission, and it basically said it was white racism that was to blame to black people's poverty, and this was President Johnson that commissioned it after Kennedy was killed, and they killed that report. The truth that basically essentially came out to say, from housing discrimination to banking discrimination, job discrimination, the unions were segregated. They said, America has done everything to make sure that black people stay poor in this country, and you have to integrate. You have to integrate the police force, integrate the workforce, in order for America to actually be America. And again, that report, they refused to even Johnson even refused to accept the report in the commission, because it politically it cost him. He wanted to get a second term, but it never got a second term.
I think there's a much more severe report. I'm answering your question. The first thing is I forgot my answer. My God. But anyway, get over 60, those things happen. I urge people to read the 2025 project.
Oh yes, yes. Yes.
They're saying the quiet part out loud.
I urge people, and because you think that report was defined, but look at the 2020 Project 2025.
Yes.
Project 2025. You can go in, you can just Google it, folks, and you can read this. It's very clear what they're intending to do, and they're saying, all right, and I don't understand how a person of color could be conservative after reading that report, because I gave it to my sister. I said to her, you need to read this, because what it's saying is that it's going to eliminate all those things that actually, all progress that we have made in this country as people of color, fairness. It's going to eliminate all that, including DEI, diversity, inclusive, and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
They're going to eradicate all that, and so I think it's important that we as a people read this information, and then you understand why I am so vehemently against this particular Republican Party. That's my first hit.
Yeah.
My second hit is when you have gerrymandering. I think it's important to understand what that means. So gerrymandering means that you're drawing the boundaries of the district for electoral purposes.
Right.
And the governor has to sign off on it.
Right.
All right. So now this is the hit. In our system, voting is the cornerstone of democracy.
Yes.
Supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
And so, and the fundamental function of voting is that the individual citizen choose the representative.
Yes, the representative.
In a representative democracy. Gerrymandering flips that on its head.
Yes.
The politician choose the voter.
Right.
You see, and so when you have gerrymandering, what tends to happen is that you're drawing a district line where you're getting people who will vote for you, who has the same ideology and the same beliefs around political beliefs that you have. So therefore, you have what you're creating is a one-party system.
Yes,
through voting. That's the importance of it. So for the Supreme Court to say that, in my opinion, is their derelict of their responsibilities.
Well, right. This is just modern day segregation.
Yes, it is.
No, but again, it is modern day segregation. But again, let's go back to like how the double standards have always applied. Like the Republican Party, when it was time for Obama to put in his pick to go to the Supreme Court, they said, "Sorry, you got 1 year left. You can't do it."
Right.
But when it was Trump's turn, he got 3 people in.
Well, not only that, not only that, but the last one, Amy Coney Barrett, was less than 30 days.
Yeah, but I personally think that Amy Coney Barrett is probably better than the other two that he put in my opinion. All right, I mean, I think she's better.
She voted with them on this South Carolina. That was a 6-3 conservative.
And I don't.
On some issues, she might be, but
I don't think. I don't think that. I'm not surprised by that. But what I do understand here is that the current. And I'm not talking about the old Republican Party, but the current MAGA-based Republican Party is bent on autocracy. That's what they want.
Hypocrisy, also hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy, exactly.
Because, like you said, you were talking about what's her name there? The South Carolina former governor there that just
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley, right? Who just came out, and they were playing, and this is what's hypocrisy. And folks, I mean, all of them. You go Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio,
every single one of them.
The South Carolina senator there, Graham. All of them. The old guy there with the glasses, McConnell. I mean, Dr. Bradley, I know how you feel about your family. I know how you feel about your wife. Rhodes, I know how you feel about. If someone had insulted my wife in a way that this buffoon has insulted their wife, their husband, her husband, who's fought for this this is Memorial Day weekend, and you're going to say you're going to endorse someone who is mocking John McCain because he was hurt during the war, someone who said he had bone spurs, so he didn't have to fight for this country, and now is the commander in chief at one point, but and you're gonna say, oh, the politics mean more to me than my family.
Well, that's because you are a man of integrity. So am I, and so's Rose. If someone would attack my wife, I would probably be in two places, one or two places, dead or the graveyard, because I would try to kill him, or he would kill me. And if I'm successful, I'm in the jailhouse. Right. So let me tell you something. These people do not care about integrity. No. I mean, when you sit there and you
well, from the day one, if you're going to take 3/5 compromise in the Constitution and you're going to justify that for you to be able to dominate, enslave, and not only do that, like import your labor and get rid of the indigenous people that are here, commit genocide on them and take their land and go, oh no, God gave us, it was divine intervention. It was like, well, it was just diseases and guns that eliminated the population, and then you happen to take the land over through force, and then now you're saying that, hey, now we've written papers and set up court systems that say this is legitimate, it's God-given, and so for us, that was the premise of this nation, and the fact that they like I said, sanitize it to the point where it's like, oh no, this is how we came here to fight for freedom, but we don't talk about the people that we oppressed when we got here to quote unquote attain a freedom.
So this is my question. And this is a simple question. What are we going to do about it?
Well, that's the scary part, because I don't see anything going on where our folks are taking this as serious as it should.
And that's where I'm heading.
Well, I'll just tell you this. Okay. The reason why I say that it's the psychology of the oppressor is this. It's like any time a leader speaks up, like from the time that you go from Jesus Christ to JFK, MLK, Martin Luther King, RFK, anyone that speaks up and speaks out the truth gets eliminated. And so therefore there is a psychological thing of like, oh, like maybe I should just comply because, you know, at least I'm still alive. And then the Democratic Party or the people that speak up lose their teeth or lose their
that depends on your value system, though, because because the people that you named had a value system where they continue to actually move forward, although they knew that their health and their safety was in jeopardy.
Yes, they did.
So that it really depends on your value system. Because my question becomes, do you sit in the house? This is where it's leading back to. Do you sit in the house and not do anything on election day? But do you see what's happening in front of you?
But see,
and what do you do about it?
I was saying to Pastor Hobbs before you guys came in that it was troubling to hear as many black people as I'm saying, thinking that somehow Trump was their savior. Like one of them was talking about, you know, Trump had this rally in New York, and the reason why he was there because he thought he was going to still be in court this week, so he figured he could just exploit the situation there. And they were interviewing some of and they were saying, well, when Trump was in office, gas was under $2. And not even understanding the reason why was gas under $2? Because everything was shut down and no one was driving. Everyone was at home. You couldn't really go anywhere. So there wasn't the supply and demand is really, but it shut this economy down. You know, unemployment for black people was way higher under Trump than it was under Trump.
Yeah, but on the other side of that ledger, though, on the other side of that argument is that fast forward to today. The reason why, one of the reasons why we're going through what we're going through economically is because
of your mismanagement.
Exactly. Because due to his mismanagement, you had a pandemic that shut down the entire supply side of your economy.
But let's unpack that for a second, gentlemen, because these folks act like Donald Trump, the art of the deal, really, like as Letitia James said, the art of the steal, right?
Yes.
Everything he has touched has gone bankrupt. Yeah. Every business that he has had, from his water to Trump. Remember Trump Airlines, Trump Steaks, Trump University, right? And you know everything that he has touched has gone bankrupt. The Trump casino.
You know what? He's selling Bibles now. So
right, water. So where is this genius? This financial genius?
He's in their imagination. Yeah. That's where he is. Because what's happening is that in America, we're always looking for who can solve our problem, especially in Black America. Mm-hmm. And that stems back to slavery. Mm-hmm. But that's the root of it. It's like, okay, this individual is going to beat me, but if I can get to Master's going to stop it.
Right,
but and so that what you're seeing is really the duplicate of that.
But do you think, like, when NBC put on The Apprentice to make money, I think they had no idea that they were creating this monster.
Exactly,
right? Because there was this perception. This
he must know what he's doing.
That
and everything.
He was this financial genius, and
but he never made the decision himself. He always had to have two other people tell the reasons, and then he'd be like,
"But it was just facade." I mean, Trump industry is less than 10 people. Yeah. And most of them are his kids.
Yes. And then the irony is when he was down there in the Bronx, he was talking about black people not having jobs. Trump, you're notorious for not paying people that work for you. And he was talking about people having housing issues. Trump, you were sued because you discriminated against black people. You wouldn't let them live in your apartment building. So it was just kind of like, you're not going to be. But I know.
But the point is, how many of them know that? Well, I mean, because think about this though. If you would just take an opportunity to read the Project 2025, and actually understand, how ludicrous it is, to have this guy come to the Bronx or wherever he was in New York and talk to people of color after saying that I am going to use this as a platform for my administration. To carry out these things that were directly against the people that he's talking to. Yeah. So what we gotta do is we have to open up our mind. When I say we, I mean people of color. We gotta open up our mind
and open up a book.
Open up a book and read what's happening. Yeah. Understand it before you go pull the lever. Understand that this individual is talking rings around you, but in actuality, he does not care about you.
All of his actions counter that, and all of these things that if people are honest about the situation. President Biden is bringing us back from the disaster of Donald Trump, and so they're blaming him for what Donald Trump put us into. And it's like, see, to your point, Dr. Bradley, and why it's so valid, and yours as well, Rhodes, because you're an economist, is that if you turn off the switch for the economy, you shut down the global economy. This wasn't just a company that was shut down during the pandemic. This was the world that was shut down.
No airline,
you don't just say, okay, the pandemic is over today and everything, you flip the switch on and everything goes back to normal. This is not a breaking news segment where they said we now return to regularly scheduled programming.
You know, like when I was in college back in the 21st century, 20th century, when I was in college.
You still have that dinosaur?
Yes, when I was in college back in the 20th century, it was that. I remember taking economics 101, and I got in, and the professor said something real, and I keep it to this day. He said you cannot stop an aircraft carrier and turn it on a dime.
Wow.
And this is, I'm saying to myself, what is this guy talking about? This is economics. But what he said to us was that when you make changes in the economy is like an aircraft carrier.
Right.
When you're making changes, it takes time for those policies to reverberate down to the average individual.
Right.
And so oftentimes, more often than not, when a president is doing well around the economy, it's because of the previous president's decision. So what you got with Donald Trump was because of what Obama did prior to Trump's arrival. I was like, people, wake up!
Exactly. I mean, in the things that President Biden, capping insulin for seniors at $25, at $35 a month, that is huge. A lot of the things, but people aren't paying attention. They're talking about and I get it. When you go to
Trump is good about controlling the narrative. He's
Yeah.
good about like, hey, let's keep even though he knows he's in court and he looks like, and to him, he doesn't care because he says to him, any press is good press.
Right.
Even if it's bad press,
Yeah.
I'm still in front of the people. They're still going to be mentioning my name.
Right.
And if they remember my name in the ballot box, that's all that matters. And if they remember, I called him Sleepy Joe, and that's all. He doesn't care. Dude.
Even now,
Yeah.
it's going bad. Folks, I want to remind you, Boston Praise Radio and TV presents the Women of Worship tomorrow, May 26, 2024, from 5 to 7 p.m. Special guests and local artists will be attending. Wow, what a lineup here. Sweet Lamb, Kareem Scott, Vanell White, Keisha Dream, Darlene Wynn, Diane Norman, Black Light Crystal, and Athea Athen. That's 670 Washington Street here at Global Ministries Christian Church. Again, that's tomorrow, May 26th, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. This is a fundraiser, so folks, please come out. And if you can't make it, you can also send in your donations. Drop by. I'm sure they won't send your way. We're passing off an offering. So, again, tomorrow from 5 to 7 p.m., May 26, 2024, Boston Praise Radio and TV presents Women of Worship. What a powerful lineup there. We'll be announcing that more throughout the broadcast. Yes. So, gentlemen, I get it. I go to the store and like you, Joe, I'm very blessed that I have prepared myself not to depend on the government, right? And I say all the time, man, I give grace for, he is no longer with us, Charlie Dickinson, who got me started in real estate early on. I was 19 years old when I bought my first property. I don't say that to brag or arrogance because I didn't know what I was doing. But I didn't know what a life-changing that was going to be because my family always rented. Matter of fact, we have someone coming on at 8 o'clock hour to talk about home ownership. Michelle Ferguson. But I say that because I get it. If you've been working a job and the job really hasn't had much advancement or it's not keeping up with the cost of living, then it seems like the government. But if you're waiting for government to fix your problem and you're waiting for that to be your only solution, you are delusional.
Yes.
Well, not only are you delusional, but you're intellectually incarcerated. If you think about it, because you know what I mean, because you can't begin to think for yourself and actually act on those thoughts because you're depending on that dime. So I don't have to worry about you supporting me when I'm feeding you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because you know what I mean. Because the average of logic, I'm not going to bite the hand that's feeding me. If I continue to be the hand that feed you, I can do what I want to do.
Right.
As long as I give you that hand. You see?
If you prepare yourself adequately, first of all, you don't qualify for government programs for most of them.
Yes.
And most of the time, you have set up your own retirement. You're paying into your own health insurance, so you have a say. And like you said, I like what was it? How you phrased it a moment ago? You're
intellectually incarcerated.
Intellectually incarcerated. I don't have to steal that from you and put it on a T-shirt. You're right. And just going back for a second to what you were saying, and this is not about taking credit, but it goes to what you're saying. A lot of the work that you did as president of MAMLEO, when other folks came in, I remember the work you did benefited us. It wasn't immediately felt, Paul Joseph came in and he did some work. He got our finances in order. He got our 501c and everything. I came in. We dealt with a lot of the litigation and stuff. A lot of that didn't come up until after we were gone.
Until Lopes is in,
right?
So Lopes is actually he headed the organization, and what we did is now manifesting itself under his organization.
Absolutely,
that's the same thing with the economy. So when people start talking about there's two ill points here that I want to make. So allow me to make this. Number one, when people start talking about the economy, they're talking about what happened under Trump, and now Joe Biden got to deal with it. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to make is that the interest rates are not controlled by the president. Can he actually make policy that influence? Absolutely, but the interest rates he doesn't pass. He can't control that. Right. We call that the Federal Reserve, which is why Trump wants to eradicate it. By the way, all right, because it has no control over it. And the interest rates is just an instrument that's used by the Federal Reserve to tamper down or ratchet up the economy. And
the sad part, to not sad part, but the reality of what you're saying, and Rhodes, you're probably, this is right in your wheelhouse. The reason why interest rates were at the lowest, people were getting loans at 2% or whatever if you had good credit. But because the economy was doing so well, they had to raise rates to cool it off. Our economy is the envy of the world. Nowhere else in the world is. If you think it's bad here, go to some of these other countries who haven't even began to recover from COVID.
But Larry, listen to this though. But if you don't understand the system, you're not trying to educate yourself. When people are talking to you who understands the system and can flavor it in such a way or position it in such a way that it makes sense to you, you're going to believe it.
But to that point, a lot of Trump's advisors, his national security advisors and folks, were saying he had no interest in the world. And basically, he's saying if he gets back in power, he doesn't want anything to do. Like, he doesn't understand about alliances, because for someone who's never been loyal to any of his wives, alliances mean nothing to him, right? Yeah. Right? So, doesn't understand the concept. But someone who, like Joe Biden, whose first wife and some of his kids were killed, he was remarried. He's been with that wife. See, he don't change them like he changes under. So people who don't understand how relationships work, and you have to work at them. And now it's someone who defies all logic. And maybe it's because of the celebrity, I guess, because of The Apprentice that gave them this. That people get so fascinated with celebrities.
But here's the crazy thing. I was like, as far as like a quality celebrity, like he didn't care. He was on wrestling. He was on anywhere they would put him on. So he didn't care. So it was just like to me, like, you're not a celebrity. You're just like an attention hog.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. But that's what he wants. He only wants people around him who will, worship him and kiss the ring. And it's really sad.
And that's why he wants to be president.
People.
The only reason he wants to really be president is because people have to grovel over him because he's the president.
Right. But there's the same people, the hypocrisy, who, when people were flying Black Lives Matter flags and anything else, people shouldn't be doing that, and that,
history's repeating itself.
Right.
Like, same thing, like every single movement, every time, again, that's what the Riot Act said. Every time black people have tried to get together to do their own economy, to work, to actually be separate and equal, the white forces have come in to destroy their economy, destroy their neighborhoods. And so it is sad to say that, again, history's repeating itself, and this time they're just using the economy to do it.
Well, like I said, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And I think it's sadly that we are going to take, because let's face it, if Donald Trump gets back in the office, he most likely will be able to appoint at least one, if not two more Supreme Court justices, right? And even if they're on the conservative side, that means if he replaces Thomas and Alito, who are older, that means there's a younger version of them coming in there, and those will be locked up for centuries, for decades.
Well, I think America has to take a very good look at it. And I'm not saying this because the court is heavily slanted towards the conservative side of conservative side of the ideology. I'm saying this because I think it's wrong. I think America needs to take a very good look at the longevity of his Supreme Court justices. I think that, in fact, I know that America is the only democratic developed country that has that their Supreme Court justices have lifetime tenure.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, and I would recommend, if I were in government, and I would be if my wife would not let me do it. But anyway, I would recommend that the Supreme Court justice that's appointed by the president should not be able to serve no more than the
8 years,
limited amount of time that the president can serve. So let me explain this. The maximum, I shouldn't say, the maximum amount of time the president can serve. So the president can serve a total of 16 years.
8 years.
8 years. He can serve a total of 8 years.
Unless you're Trump.
2 terms.
Right.
So that means that the Supreme Court justice should only be able to serve 16 years.
Right.
Because he should be able to double the amount of maximum time that the president can serve.
And you know, I like that idea, because if you think about it, right, time evolves, right? Yeah. And these folks are so stuck on in back in when they got appointed, right? And because like they're saying, they want to be strict constitutionalists, and like even like in Arizona, when they're going back to laws from 1800s and stuff, and like we're in 2024, and yet you want us to regress and abide by
a law that 1865,
200 years ago,
that certain segments of the population had no rights. You want us to revert back to that, and shame on people if they think that. I don't know whether they think that, like I was saying earlier. Historically, we have complied with court rulings, whether we like them or not. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be a point, because even like, you know, that's what you think about the civil rights.
That's literally it. It's like we've always complied, but they haven't.
Right.
They remember the country got started because it was a rebellion against the king.
And the insurrection was because they didn't like the outcome of a legitimate election.
Yes.
And now we're saying you want us to abide by an unelected Republican operative of the Supreme Court on decisions.
I think it's going to get worse, though.
Yeah,
I think when you look at how the MAGA segment of the Republican Party, which is 2/3 of the Republican Party, are beginning to line up their ducks. Yeah, they're lining up their ducks with the anticipation that Trump is going to lose this thing. Because, you know, that's what they're doing, and because if we look at the history, usually the president that's it's very hard to defeat that unless it's really bad. Yeah. All right, and I don't think it's at that point where Biden is at the point where he will not win this. I think when you have a situation where 1/3 of the Republican Party, independents like myself, and Democrats are saying, no, we don't want Trump. I think although Joe is over, I do think that those people are going to unite, the Romneys of the Republican Party, right. Or the George Conways of the Republican Party will come like, no, we're going to actually vote for democracy, not vote for autocracy. Yeah, and so I think when that happens,
the Liz Cheneys,
yes, and hold up, when that happens, what happens is that it's going to be rebellion.
617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. Listeners at the round table with MAMLEO. You want to go?
No, I was just going to say again, the democracy is being turned into hypocrisy, because I remember you mentioning this, the fact that like he went to go see some injured police officers, but he didn't go in to see any of the injured police officers from the January 6th.
Right, because he caused that. Yeah. But this is Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
How can any veteran, regardless to what party you're affiliated with, for someone to say that you are a sucker for defending democracy, for defending this country, and that he did not want to be seen in photographs when he went to Europe there with wounded people, he didn't like that image. Even his own daughter, he said he didn't want to be standing next to one of them because she didn't fit the image from one of his other wives. Tiffany.
Yeah.
That he was embarrassed. I mean, folks, this someone is so vain.
Yes.
So vain.
But when you're operating out of fear, Larry, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're doing is we're articulating logic. We're telling you, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. But when you're operating from a position of fear, fear of losing your supremacy, fear of losing what you feel that it is your birthright because you're born with European heritage, you're going to excuse all that stuff and say, just do what you need to do to get rid of them.
But here's the thing and this is why history is so important, and people not understanding it and not recognizing it, right? Is that we have so many examples that show us that this doesn't, that you think they're just coming after one segment of the world, right? Look in Russia, right? There are probably very few people in there that look like us at this table in Russia, right? Those folks are obligated to vote for Vladimir Putin. If you say anything against him, whether you look like us or anybody else, you will go missing, right? So dictators don't just take the right. They'll tell you they're only going after this segment of the population. They're coming after, they silence everyone's voice. Hitler, even though there was Germany, was Germans, they had no more say in their lives. They were as controlled. So don't think it's just going to, well, I'll be able to go around and do whatever I want. He's only going to be going after immigrants and black people and women's rights. They're coming for you.
You know the old poem. First they came for the Unionists. Then they, so again,
when it came
for me, there was no one left.
But brother, listen, there were Jews in Germany that supported Hitler. There were.
Yeah.
In fact, there were Jews in Germany that served in the Nazi Party.
Wow.
But they just didn't know that they were Jews. All right, the Jews
Didn't want nobody to know either.
They didn't want anybody to know that they were Jews, and Hitler didn't know that they were Jews. In fact, the people that were serving on Hitler's command staff were Jews.
Yeah.
All right, but they went along with the program. They knew what was going on. I bring all that to say is that we have people of color, black people in this nation today, that would get on Fox News, that would sit on CNN, that would sit on NBC and all those other news outlets, and they will articulate nonsense about supporting a fool that is actually there to make sure that your life is in complete
But
turmoil.
here's the problem that worries me, gentlemen, is that these folks are so easily influenced, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm hearing people that...
No, they're hard-headed. I try talking to them.
Right.
And they do not listen to logic. They're like, no, Sleepy Joe, he's been there for 40 years. Right. No, he ain't done... Like, no, I need to give it a chance. I need to give somebody... I'm like, this is who you choose.
You gave him a chance.
Yeah.
And look what happened to this country, right? Yeah. You gave him a chance. And when the crisis came up with just the COVID... His answers were nonsensical, bleach, and...
But actually, he said something that really hit me. Sleepy Joe. Well, who's sleeping in court?
I know. I mean, who looks like they've aged more than Biden? Right?
Who's sleeping in court? I mean, it was like he said. I'm sorry, Sleepy Joe. When people say that to me, I say to them, "What you're doing is parroting what you heard Trump say."
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that Biden said, I thought was so.
No, that's a childish name calling.
Well, that's what he alludes to.
Exactly.
He has no policy. Like, all of this time that he's been out there, all he's been is his personal grievance, right? Yeah. You haven't heard one legitimate policy issue because he has no grasp of the reality. But I did like one of the things that, because they're going to be having two debates with Biden and Joe Biden was on the air the other day, and he was saying he's up for the debates, and he says, I know Trump is, he said, but I know you're free on Wednesdays. So Wednesdays where, because he knows he's not. But I mean, that's the other thing. Have we sunk so low? Are we that desperate that we can't find any decent, intelligent? Not even just, you take the decency out, because Trump's behavior is not new to politics, right? Womenizing, that's been around since the beginning of time, right? Mm-hmm. We've had John Edwards and Kennedy, right? The list goes long. But it wasn't to this extreme, right? And they weren't criminals, right? They weren't indicted when they were running. That would have been an immediate disqualifier. Now it's a campaign.
Larry,
it's a cover. The cover up is the campaign.
What I really have difficulties wrapping my mind around the stupidity associated with this issue, and I'm going to put it to you.
Okay.
If Trump win, and the court has already said that he was an insurrectionist. He was, actually the Supreme Court justices said that he was an oath-breaking insurrectionist.
Mm-hmm. But he's our oath-breaking insurrectionist.
So my difficulty is, how do you justify in history issuing another oath to an oath breaker?
Yeah.
Think about that. That's powerful.
Yeah.
But see, this broadcast tries to provoke thoughts in people's minds, right? And sadly, Dr. Bradley, folks, if they tune in and hear this type of conversation of folks they don't want to hear that. They want to be entertained, not informed. Yeah. And that's really sad.
Well, here on this particular broadcast in the round table, we're going to have, the EE ratio is going to be the education part of the EE ratio, not the entertainment part that's we're going to elevate. So my question is, think about that, folks. How do you justify issuing an oath to an oath-breaking insurrection?
Yes.
Right, because he took an oath to uphold the Constitution.
So what make you think he's not going to break it again?
But he's already said he wants to be a dictator on day one.
Yeah, and he says he's going to pardon the insurrectionists.
Right, that these are victims. And that's what I hear somebody's like, well, you can relate to him. How? This man has lived a privileged life all his life, and he's saying you can relate to him because he finally got caught. He's been getting away with it all his life, and now the chickens are coming home to roost. And he's not a victim because he's being held accountable. If you and I had done what and then to watch these folks come there like it's some clown show with their red ties on in support of him, these politicians. I mean, so if I was a person in their district and I've been going to court and and I feel like I'm a victim of the system, where's my support?
Yeah.
Why aren't you coming to court for me? Is this becoming the norm? It's just.
I think that's one side. The other side of it is like what's happening down in Washington, where you should be, where I put you to be.
Well, that was the other thing. They had to delay hearing until late in the evening, and then that got contentious with the congresswoman from Texas and the
Georgia.
Crazy one from Georgia.
Yes.
I mean, I would say this has been the most dysfunctional, least productive Congress that I can recall in my lifetime of any accomplishments.
And that's where I think it's going to. I think it's going to be a problem for the Republican Party.
I hope you're right.
I think so. I think it's going to be a problem for the Republican Party because it's a clown show. I mean, they can't even find a legitimate Speaker of the House,
right?
Which is a critical role in our government. But
he's the third in line,
exactly. And so I think when rational people like us going to the poll.
But see, there's ration and then there's emotion, and that's where I think where people are being clouded. Because the other thing that Trump's folks have said, particularly with black, what they're doing is not only what's even more dangerous to people that may even want to vote. They pass laws making it more difficult. So if you're not someone like us who are determined we're going to go vote, whether we have to go in there and knock somebody out, we're going and vote because we have a right to vote. There are people who are just going to be afraid if you feel like, okay, if I have the slightest thing that I think might cause a problem for me going in there, I'm just going to stay home. That works just as effectively if you have a segment of people who would vote for someone else, because they don't want people voting for Biden to be able to vote at all.
Yeah. No, and I think what Biden should do as well is right now, since he's trying to remove, since he's moved marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, he should, and then they're issuing the pardons and stuff like that. That's one of those things they should do is reinstitute all those people's voting rights.
One of the sad part about what you're saying, Larry, is that back when I was a kid, back in the 20th century, I remember my grandfather and my father debating over the legitimacy of the black vote. I remember that, and I didn't know what a vote was, but I do remember vividly that conversation, and my grandfather saying, I'm going to vote regardless of what you say, and I'm going to do this, and going to the poll in Augusta, Georgia, and getting beaten because he attempted to vote. So that constitutes a voting intimidation. Voting intimidation. Now, that was in the 20th century. What we're talking about now, what you just mentioned, is voting intimidation in the 21st century. But the point here is all intimidation.
Yes.
It can be physical or intellectual. Yeah. But it's all intimidation.
Yeah. Because they did enforce the law with this one lady that she said in Florida, and Ron DeSantis actually sent out like FBI.
They arrested her.
Yeah.
But there was a woman in Texas.
Not even hey, knock on the door, hey, you made a mistake.
There was, this same thing happened to
guns
a black woman in Texas who was, and luckily the Supreme Court there overturned her conviction. Her conviction, but they wanted to send her to jail because she put a provisional ballot in because she wasn't sure on whether or not she was eligible to vote. So when she went, the people at the polling place weren't sure. So they gave her a provisional ballot. It was never even cast. But that's all the intimidation. I know we got 2 minutes.
But that's another issue, though. Because once I have gone, and I think Pastor Hobbs would appreciate this, once I have gone to
the city court,
committed a crime, and I have gone to, been adjudicated, gone to court, got that, and now I'm going to jail, and I have done my time, and now I'm back. Why should I lose my right to vote?
Right.
You
and especially if the crime you committed had nothing to do with voting.
Yeah. I mean, why should I? I mean, but that is done because you try to orchestrate a situation where people.
To what you're saying, why you guys bring out this, I appreciate you guys so much because of the way you bring these conversations, is that they are now defending someone whose whole purpose, Donald Trump, right, is delaying a trial, who wanted to overturn the vote.
Yes.
And they're saying that he should be the president of the United States, and these people can't even cast the ballot?
Yeah.
That's just, wow.
It's stupidity. It's stupidity at the highest order. So how do you actually, once you have done all you had to do, yes, we all make mistakes.
Yes.
Now, we have a criminal justice system. The system has to given his justice, issued his justice. Now, why can I be welcomed back into the fold of citizenry, the fold of humanity?
Yeah, 'cause it's like
why
you're
you
being
denying
punished
my right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But the hypocrisy.
Or is you're being continually,
Wow. This is crazy, folks. This is what I said, the ultimate hypocrisy. They're in there defending someone who is on trial and who is the president of the United States, who took an oath to defend it, is violated it, and they want him back in, and people who just cast a provisional vote are convicted and they want to put them in jail. Yeah. You've been listening to the Round Table with Memo. We've got to take our required break, and we'll be right back. Wow. When you